the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
How small he is and whatnot, and with the offensive line issues that they have, but I agree with JP where we can't just be like, yep, there's nothing there with Bryce Young. Way too much going against him as a first-year quarterback where we can make any sort of, decent analysis of how he's played.
Let's go to this. Who you got? Russell Wilson or Sean Payton? Who is most responsible for the Broncos win streak? Let's start with you, Jarrett.
I mean, you gotta say Payton. And that's no disrespect to Russ, but we saw what he was last year, and now we're seeing what he is this year, and a lot of that has to do with Sean Payton coming in. But you look at Russ's numbers, like eye test, if you watch any of Denver, those don't necessarily reflect how he's played, but he's played a hell of a lot better than he did last year. And a lot of that boils down to the fact that he has one of the best play callers of the last era in his helmet on the sideline. And they started off roughly and started off 1-4, but now they've won 5 in a row, and they're right in the thick of being in the AFC playoff race. The defense has gotten a lot better too since they allowed 70 to Miami. So I think everybody after that game kind of reassessed the season a little bit. I think really after the loss to the Jets, because I think that was the last time they lost, if I'm not mistaken. Just really had to reassess the entire situation and figure out where to go from there. But Sean Payton's done a really good job. Russ has done a really good job too. He's had 2 of the craziest touchdown passes of the season. The one to Cortland Sutton against Buffalo that he threw the craziest.
There was one against Buffalo, and there was one against the Vikings that were both pretty insane.
And he threw one in the red zone against Cleveland yesterday that wasn't as crazy as those other 2, but I mean, he's running around and guns it to the front pylon for a touchdown. We're seeing a lot of old Russ come back, and I think coming into this week, he had 17 touchdowns and no picks in the red zone. That's pretty damn good. So, and we've talked about this on the show before. They're not asking him to be, peak Russ. They're asking him to hand the ball off, and if we get in a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, okay, Russ, convert this 3rd down. That's all they really need him to do. They don't need him to be Superman. He can just be, if we're looking at NFL Super Friends, if we're looking at it from a Super Friends perspective, they don't need him to be Superman. They don't need him to be Batman. They just need him to be Green Lantern. They need him to be Martian Manhunter. He can be this complementary piece to the Justice League that, when he does his part right, then great. As long as everybody else, Sean Payton's being, Batman, and the defense is being, the Flash and Wonder Woman. Everything else is taking care of business, but they need Russ to play his part too. So he's been a vital part of what they've done, but he hasn't had to be, the main reason why they've been successful.
So in this win streak, which started in week 7, from week 7 on, per Ben Baldwin's site at The Athletic, the Denver Broncos early down pass rate is 44.3%, which is 31st in the entire NFL. I think before the season, I wrote about what a successful Denver Broncos offense looks like with Russell Wilson as your quarterback. I think this is what I kind of expected. You want him to kind of game manage the game along, but when it comes time to make the throws, this is the entire thing with Sean Payton. Sean Payton's basically told Russ, if it's not there, just run. But when it comes time to make the throws in the high leverage situations, like Jarrett was talking about, in the red zone, on 3rd downs, that's when Russ gets to cook. It's not exactly like you're making a 5-star meal. It's just TV dinners. Let Russ make a TV dinner. And I think where the improvement has come is along the offensive line, with the running game. I think Russ has done really good in terms of not making the backbreaking mistakes that he was last year. But I also think a lot of it is due to, he hasn't had to throw the ball a lot. He doesn't need to throw the ball a lot with this offense, with this game plan. And the defense has played phenomenally since getting Baron Browning back. I do think there is something to, you get to play Minnesota and Cleveland and the Packers as 3 games, as this 5-game win streak. But you did beat Buffalo on the road, and you also did beat Kansas City in a game where the Chiefs only scored 9 points. So there is it's not just a lot of noise against bad teams. It's, they've played pretty well. And I think the biggest thing is Sean Payton finally getting we know what a successful offense for Russ looks like. And it might not be like the high-flying, explosive, like 2020 Seahawks first half of the season Russ offense, but it's effective, and it's helping the Broncos win games.
And it's interesting. I just think I think it's fun to see this Sean Payton bump here down the stretch. And I mean, they're an interesting team if they make it into the playoffs. Like, obviously they're not going to win the division, but like depending on the matchups, that could be spicy. Like, I think they're one of the more spicier teams that you don't want Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And the way that the Broncos are playing right now, where to y'all's point, they've kind of figured out the best way to utilize Russ. The defense is a lot better than what it was. I don't know. Is there a team that like they match up like when it's still a little early to think playoff matchups, but in terms of the division leaders, who potentially matches up the worst in a first round spot with the Broncos? Who would want to play them the least?
Ooh, who would want to play them the least?
I mean, the Chiefs. But we're only saying that because this would be the third time that they played them.
Yeah.
I mean, the other three division leaders are the Dolphins, who put 70 on that team.
Right.
And the Jaguars, who I don't think are a good matchup for the Broncos. And then the Ravens, who are the 1 seed right now. So by process of elimination, it's the team that you already beat so far this season.
That'd be interesting, man. The meltdown of the Chiefs if they were to go down to the Broncos in the first round of the playoffs.
Here's the thing with that, man. I'll say this about that. If the Chiefs were to play the Broncos again, I think the Chiefs win by 4 scores. And that's nothing against Denver, but I think that there is something to say for, the Chiefs. One of my closest friends in media, Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, made this point to me. Like, it's not that the Chiefs don't care, but like when at this point in the year, like it's not the beginning of the year where you're really amped up, and it's not, necessarily the final couple weeks where like you're gearing up for the playoffs. It was the middle of the year. Like they could have got off the plane and be like, all right, what city are we in? Oh, we're in Denver. All right. Yeah, I guess we'll go play. I just don't think they could have been bothered. But when it's January and it's playoff time and the Chiefs are equally as amped up to play as Denver is, it's not a competition. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Denver. They beat them. They deserve to win, and they made Patrick Mahomes look bad in the game in which they beat them. But an amped up Chiefs team against an amped up Broncos team, I'm taking Kansas City by a comfortable margin.
Of course, but I don't know. When it comes to the question Chase asked about,
I wasn't shitting on your answer, by the way, JP.
I don't know. I'm just not comfortable choosing them against a team that they lost by 50 points to.
No, absolutely not.
The other 2 teams are really good. So.
Absolutely, yes.
There you go. Jarrett, buy or sell?
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.